So first, what I want to talk about is, do you really need a lawn? Because sometimes people think, oh, I have a new property, I'm just going to put in lawn and worry about the rest later. Or maybe they already have some lawn and they just want to learn how to tend that. But it's also a good idea to think about, maybe you don't want that lawn there, maybe you want to have something else there. So a lawn, in my opinion, should be if you're going to play on it, sit on it for kids, pets, you, whatever, and otherwise there's a lot better purposes for that space. And so this website may change, it has from time to time, but if you go to utahrivers.org, you may be able to find it even if this website address does not work. And there's also the Utah Water Savers website, and it talks about flip your strip. So parking strip, it has different names in other parts of the country, but that piece of grass in between your sidewalk and your street, that's just not a sensible place to have grass at all. So there's other things you can do with it. Some people plant edible plants there. I would avoid that unless you have a really wide one, because there could be contamination from the street. But still, you can put drought tolerant plants there, all different kinds of things there, instead of having this place that you're trying to tend a lawn. And so just consider that possibility. This is, I don't know if this is still there, but several years ago I visited a landscape in Salt Lake where they had a very wide parking strip, ripped out all the grass and put a lot of edible plants in their seating areas. The man that did this was actually a musician, and he'd hold concerts out in his parking strip. And there's some things that I would have done a little differently, but I think it's just the basic idea that you can do something different than just have grass there. And then this is part of my front yard where it used to be lawn. It's all edible plants now, well, most of it. There's rhubarb, currants, strawberries, French sorrel, different things in there that I've added even since that. So why tend your lawn organically? So it can save you time, save you money, and it can be safer for children, pets, you. And a properly tended lawn can be a healthier lawn, less problems with it. I found that a lot of people, whether they're interested in organic lawn care or not, aren't really that interested in or aren't that knowledgeable about the proper ways to tend their lawn. So also, as far as why to tend your lawn organically, there's a trailer of a documentary that was made several years ago. It's called A Chemical Reaction. This is the YouTube address, but if you just look on YouTube for A Chemical Reaction, then look for the documentary. There was also some movie with that name. But that gives you an idea of what they did in a town in Canada, where they actually were successful at banning a lot of the lawn chemicals that were causing problems for the community. And then this is an article I wrote about organic weed control, which is appropriate for landscapes and lawns. And then the only lawn care company I know of in this area that does organic lawn care, if you want somebody to do it for you, is Wasatch Natural. I've talked to others that claim to be, and none of them really fit the organic methods. And then this is my Garden Inspire website, where if you go to resources, you can see other information about herbicides and pesticides and things that can cause problems and what some alternatives are. And so if you have a lawn that synthetic pesticides and fertilizers have been used on, sometimes it takes a while for the lawn to adjust to an organic method. But I haven't personally had that happen. I've been able to switch over without any problems at all. So I thought this was kind of funny. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is mowing your lawn. And obviously you don't want to wait this long before you mow. So it's best to mow when your lawn is dry. And I prefer to mow after 6. That's not necessarily necessary, but it's a lot cooler that time of day, more pleasant to be outside. And the lawn may not be as stressed because the weather has cooled off some. And try to remove no more than 1/3 of the grass blade. So in the previous cartoon where the lawn was really long, I don't think anybody's gets to that point, but if you've been out of town or whatever, haven't been able to mow, sometimes it's a good idea to mow off a little bit, wait a few days and mow off a little bit more so you're not cutting off a whole bunch at one time. And then Kentucky bluegrass should be allowed to grow from 2.5 to 3 inches long, so it should be that long after mowing. The only times it should be shorter than that is when you do your last mowing in the fall and your first in the spring, and then you can do that one shorter, but the rest of the time it needs to be longer so that you have healthier roots and healthier grass. And then make sure that your mower blades are free of chips. You can go and have somebody else sharpen them, or you can do it yourself, or you might need to get new blades. But that way your grass, the ends of your grass blades aren't getting shredded. So if you look at your grass blades and just on the end it looks kind of yellow, and if you look closely it looks kind of shredded, it's a mower blade problem. And then leave your clippings on the lawn. There's no reason to go to all that work to bag your clippings. It's better for the lawn to leave them on the lawn. It's adding nitrogen and moisture back in. And I have never had lawn clippings hauled in the house on kids' feet or pets' feet or have little piles all over the yard, because I'm not mowing it when it's wet and I'm not cutting off a lot of the grass blade. And those grass clippings just fall in between the grass and help fertilize your lawn. And they do not contribute to thatch. Thatch is caused by the roots of the lawn dying at the soil level. And when microorganisms are killed off by synthetic pesticides and fertilizers, there's nothing there to help decompose that thatch. So if you're doing all these things I'm going to tell you today, you shouldn't have a problem with thatch. And then some people will ask me about thatching their lawn or dethatching their lawn, and that's really not a good idea. That can cause damage to your lawn and the soil. So there's just no reason to do it at all. And as far as watering, it's best to water before 10 in the morning, and actually most laws in different places tell you you should not be watering after 10. And I try to have it done by 8 in the morning or 9 at the latest. So if you have a sprinkler system, you can count back and decide when you want it to start, and so that it'll cycle through it and be all done by 8 or 9 in the morning. And it's a good idea to have it cycle through 2 to 3 times generally if you have a sprinkler system. That makes it a lot easier. If you don't know how to program it, talk to the company. Go into a place that sells them and talk to them about the best ways to program your sprinkler system. So 2 to 3 times a week at most is what you want to be watering. You don't want to water every day. You don't want to water twice a day. I prefer mornings because there's less chance of fungal problems or any other disease problems on your lawn if you're doing that. It has a chance to dry out during the day. If you do it at night, it tends to stay damp all night long. So you want to go out and check your sprinkler system every once in a while. Just turn it on for a few minutes, go around, check everything, make sure there's no geysers happening or other kinds of leaks or things clogged where nothing's coming out, because sediment and things do build up in sprinklers sometimes. I had a neighbor once that I was up at 6 in the morning and there was a geyser right by the house, and it was a duplex, so I went over and I was worried about waking him up, but I thought I should let him know before their house flooded. So something like that could be happening and you wouldn't even know. And sometimes when people find a dry spot in their lawn, it's because there's a problem with the sprinkler, and that's all it is, and if they fix that, then it's fine. And then I think it's a good idea to go out and look at your lawn, see what's sloped, what's flat. Do you have pop-ups? Do you have more like the rainbirds or the gear-driven? If you have like a gear-driven or a rainbird, it's only watering in each spot for a short period of time, so you need to account for that when it's doing this, where pop-ups watering the whole area at one time. So if it's a pop-up and it's a flat area, I found in this area, you just water it 15 minutes per station, let it cycle through and do it again. So it has a chance to soak in the first pot before it's coming around and doing it again. And then in the heat of summer, you may need to have it do it 3 times. And then with the gear-driven or rainbird, it might be 30 to 40 minutes per station because of how it's sprinkling. And then you might need to have that come through and do it twice. Now, if you have a sloped area, you're not going to be able to do that. So what I would do is turn the sprinklers on for maybe 5 or 10 minutes and see how long it takes before the water starts running off. And then as soon as it starts running off, you want to water a little less than that. So if it starts running off at 10 minutes, have it finish at 8 or 9 minutes. and then cycle through so that you can still get the same period of time that I mentioned if it was a flat area. So you just need to have it cycled through more times. And if it's that much of a slope, you may not want lawn there anyway. So consider ground covers or something like that where you don't have to mow and water a sloped area. So fertilizing. I use the Concern fertilizer. It is an organic fertilizer that also has a pre-emergent in it, that it uses corn gluten meal, which has been found to stop seeds from growing once they've germinated. And a lot of weeds come up in the spring and fall when the weather is cooler. So this has the fertilizer plus that pre-emergent. You don't want to use it where you're planting any lawn seeds. So if you do that spring and fall, you don't need to do a 4 to 6 step fertilizer program like you would with a synthetic fertilizer. So it may cost you more to begin with, but you're doing it fewer times per year. So in the long run, it's really not more expensive. So you can use just a straight lawn fertilizer if you're planting seeds and you don't want to worry about damaging the lawn seed. So this one, like I say, is a really good one. And organic lawn fertilizers help the soil to be healthy, because a healthy soil contributes to healthy plants. And so you're going to have less disease and pest problems. You're going to help keep the microorganisms alive that help the soil to be healthy. And then again, leave your lawn clippings on the lawn, because they're contributing to the health of the lawn. And then another thing that I like to do is use a fish emulsion seaweed blend. And you just shake this up and put it in a hose and sprayer, and then you can spray your lawn. I actually use this all over my landscape on all the plants. And plants absorb this through the leaves and through the soil. So I water a little bit with lawn, but I also am spraying the leaves. And this has macro and micronutrients in it. The seaweed has been shown to help plants be more drought tolerant and disease resistant and frost tolerant. So it's a great thing to add. And then you can do this every 2 weeks if you want to. I don't do it that often. But if you ever notice your lawn a little less green, you could use this. You could also spread some compost over your lawn. So aerating, people think of aerating as something you do in the spring. And you can do that, but I think the fall is a better time, because when you're aerating, it pulls little plugs of soil out. And then if there's rain, snow, whatever, that can get down in those holes. Where if you do it in the spring, it can just dry out in there if it's too hot before the holes fill in. And after you have it aerated, if you put compost down over, the compost can get down in those holes. And that's really good if you have a sandy or clay soil, because that's a great way to add organic matter. And you can add compost anyway, even if you're not aerating. That's just a really good time to do it. But then just aerate every fall after that, and you don't want to do it when the soil is too wet. So weed and pest control. So if you're tending your lawn properly, if you're doing all the things I set up to now, you'll have less weed and pest problems anyway. And so that will help you in the long run. So this is a website, and this is another one that it keeps changing. So I've had to update it, but this is a website where you can see these kinds of weeds like these kinds of conditions. So for example, if you see that you have these weeds and they all like a compacted soil, and you aerate the soil, add some compost, then those weeds might just go away because the conditions are no longer what they want. You might see that certain kinds of weeds like a damper soil, and maybe your soil is damper than it should be from overwatering or the water table or something like that. And so that just helps you figure out what those weeds like to help get rid of them by changing the circumstances. And then another thing, of course, the Preemergent, which I already mentioned, and the Preemergent is available by itself too. So you can get just corn gluten meal to use in all parts of your yard where you're not planting any seeds. But again, you don't want to use it where you are planting any seeds. So the synthetic weed killers and fertilizers can damage your soil structure and kill off the microorganisms. There's a newer herbicide that only kills things that are not grass. So this is great for a lawn. It contains a specific kind of iron that has been shown to kill things that are not grass. So you can spray it on your lawn and it will kill various kinds of things that are not grassy kinds of weeds. So people ask about things like crabgrass. This isn't going to kill crabgrass, but crabgrass is an annual. So if you keep your lawn longer and use the Preemergent, you're going to reduce your incidence of crabgrass. And crabgrass tends to grow pretty flat. It turns red in the fall and then it dies. So if you see a grass that doesn't fit that, say it grows straight up, that's not crabgrass. That is some kind of an orchard or pasture grass, and the best way that I know to control that is dig a bigger area around than that spot and just rip it out and throw it away, and then reseed or resod that area. And then whatever weeds are still left, you can just dig them up. So insects and fungus, again, proper lawn care reduces the incidence of insect and fungus problems. So there's certain kinds of insect pests that tend to be around here and certain kinds of disease problems. So you don't want to leave things like leaves on your lawn over winter. I mow them into the lawn, so I'm composting right into the lawn, and then other ones I'll put in my compost pile or use for mulch or something like that. But leaving them on the lawn contributes. And then if you see something that looks like big donut kind of shapes, like with the hole in the middle, that's necrotic ring spot. And all the lawn care methods will eliminate that. If you see a white kind of look on your lawn, that's powdery mildew. If you see a rusty colored look to your lawn, that's rust. And so just by elimination, you can figure out whether it's a disease or a pest problem. Now, there could be a disease and doesn't fit one of those. So another thing you can do is if you go out to your lawn at dusk and you see little white moths flying right above the lawn at dusk, you have sod webworm. If you go out and you dig into your lawn and you peel it back and you see little white grubs, they look kind of like a little caterpillar curled up in a C shape, then you have grubs in your lawn. And those are the two most common. We've also had cinch bugs. And if it's not, it doesn't appear to be any of those diseases or insects, then you can take a number 10 can and cut off, have both ends off, stick it into the soil, fill it up with water, and cinch bugs will float up to the surface. And then that should help you figure out which thing it is and what to do about it. Now, if you have one of the insect problems, you can go out, if you have the golf shoes with the spikes, you can go out and walk around on your lawn with that. Sometimes people wear them when they're mowing their lawn, and that can stab them. Another thing you can do, insecticidal soap, this is a concentrate. And you mix this with water in a number 10 can and dump it in the spots where you have the insect problem, and it goes down into the soil and kills them in the soil. I've only had grubs at one property, and I did that, they were gone. And that's the only time I've ever had any insects. So if it doesn't fit any of these, then you probably have a lawn fungus, and you can use this as a preventative, the seaweed, and then there's neem oil, and neem oil can be used also for fungus. So overseeding, that refers to when you have an existing lawn and maybe it's a little thinner than you'd like, you just like it to look a little bit better. So using the other methods can help, but you can also put seed down to help thicken your lawn. And if you're using the seed, of course, you don't want to use the corn gluten meal because it would stop the germination. So it's a good idea to put just a little bit of compost down all over your lawn. It's not going to go through a spreader. So if you put it in a number 10 can and dump it out and just kind of rake it out, it doesn't have to be even, and then put some grass seed down. And that's best done in spring and fall when the weather's cooler and hopefully there's some precipitation from nature that will help you with that. And then where to buy grass seed and what to buy. A lot of nurseries and garden centers sell it. You want to look at the back of the package. It will say the percentage of weeds, and it's never weed seed. It's never going to be zero, but you want that to be as low as possible. So sometimes more expensive grass seed has fewer weed seeds in it, and that's one reason for the cost. But in cooler climates and northern climates, and around here, it's going to be primarily Kentucky bluegrass. It may have a mix of fescues and things in it. It's actually good to have a mix, because then if there was a disease that would hit, it might only hit one of the kinds of grass and the rest would be just fine. And then if you're putting in a new lawn, a lot of what I said is the same. I prefer to remove rocks and big weeds and things like that, and you can put a Preemergent down in case there's any weed seeds dropped there, and then put some compost over the top, a few inches if possible, and then put your grass seed down. And then if you want to put a little bit of compost over that, you can. You don't want to cover it a lot. Sometimes people will use peat moss. Well, peat moss has no nutrients in it at all, and when it dries out, it repels water. Where compost does have some nutrients in it, and it won't cause that problem with drying out and repelling water. And so then you want the grass or the soil to be fairly moist until your grass is at least an inch tall. And if it's sod that you're putting down, you want it to stay moist until it's been at least 14 days. And then you don't want to use any weed killers or anything on it until the lawn is well established. Even things like this. Just go out there and dig up the few weeds you see, and then once your lawn is established and grown in thickly, then you can tend it like I mentioned earlier. So again, keep your lawn 2.5 to 3 inches long. Don't water your lawn every single day, every 2 to 3 days. In fact, if you didn't water for weeks, in most cases your lawn would be just fine. I lived in Alaska for a while, and they didn't sell any sprinkling systems at any of the stores because there was plenty of precipitation usually. And it was an extra hot summer up there, and all the lawns looked really brown. Schoolyards, soccer fields, everything. And then when it rained, it all came back and they were fine. And then with fertilizers, make sure you're using good organic fertilizers to help you have good soil health. Aerate just once per year in the fall is a really good time, and proper mowing, fertilizing will take care of most insect and disease problems and weed problems. So thank you very much for coming. I hope that that has really helped you with learning how to tend your lawn properly and to have a healthy organic lawn.